Minute late. Hello, 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 and welcome to Bonga Dada Bonga, Bonga Dada Bonga, Bonga Dada Bonga Dada Bonga Dada Bonga. Well, what is it that I'm doing all the dancing about? I'm dancing about this new platform that's called Bonga Dada Bonga, and it means Speak, Sister, Speak. I am Ella Dashanaba King, also known as Queen Mother. I am one of the correspondents for Bonga Dada Bonga, and I'm usually in the background handling some of the controls. But today I wanted to come in and greet you to episode number 18. What are we talking about today? We're still talking about the issue of the post election coverage and, of course, women's gains. Those are the two things that we'll be covering today. And if you remember, on episode 16, we talked on the same, but people sort of were like, we got to know more about that. We got to know more about that. So listen, we heard you, we listened, and we gave you what you asked for, which was round two of dealing with post election conversations, as well as talking more about women's gains. I just want to take a moment to tell you how Bonga Dada Bonga came into existence in the very first place. It was during the month of March, during Women's History Month, on Queen Mother Speaks, where we were dealing with the theme for Women's History Month that was called Break the Bias. So, what we did with the Queen Mother Speaks show is we invited women from around the globe to give us a 2-3 minutes on what bias were they experiencing or biases that they may have seen. When we got to the continent of Africa and we moved over to the country called Kenya, and the women here started speaking, they started talking about the upcoming election in August and wondering what was going to happen to their women and would the women have a chance to really be a part of our new scene for 2022 in Kenya moving forward. And so people started asking me, what are we going to be doing on the Queen Mother Speak show? And I went into my spirit and like, well, I don't know, y'all, because usually what we do as foreigners is when you decide to have to vote, we get out of town, we get hat, and we come back after the election. But this year, I decided I wanted to stay and just experience it for myself. And in the process of doing that, when I asked myself, well, what should I do to help our women here in Kenya? What I got was this: you have a platform, use it. Ha! That's what I said. Ha! And so Bonga Dada Bonga was born. And here we are today in episode number 18. So, what that means is for the past 17 episodes, we've been covering women here in Kenya who are running for office. We call it WIP, Women in Politics. And we've been sourcing women from all over the country in the rural areas and having them to come on this platform because this is a platform for women's voices. Okay. And having said that, we have in our studio today our host and our co-host and one of our guests. The second guest will be joining us just a little later. But before we go there, I want to bring our host onto the platform, and then I want to take a moment and introduce her, Madam Florence.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we're very happy to have you. Let me tell you a little bit about Florence's history. She has 20 years of advocacy, research, and training with various organizations in Kenya and on the African continent, and dealing with issues on policy issues towards SGBV and focusing on child protection. Wow, what a mouthful. Florence has been actively participating in the international conferences that seek to raise awareness around the protection of most vulnerable people, especially, as we've said, our children. She's coordinated at the county and at the country level, and she's done things all over the continent, right? Various projects specifically starting the initiative. There was one program that was called The Sound of Silence that brought the voices of children who've been violated to policy making spaces. Now, her 25 conversations in 25 schools in Africa has been seen as the African Charter on the rights and the welfare of the children. So she's done a lot in this country over her 20 years of advocacy, and we are pleased and happy to have her on the show today. All right, so that's who Florence is. Thank you, Florence.
Thank you so much.
Looks like she may be frozen on screen. There she is.
Thank you for your wonderful introduction.
You are most welcome.
All right, should I start?
Yes, by all means.
Okay, so this is a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. One of the things that we need to look at, and after 2022 election,
through that, we started a foundation that is called Nyakundi Foundation.
okay,
we
we need
give
to
out
mute
exercise
somebody.
books and pens, which these people.
All right. Okay, wonderful. So we, just as a background, if you're joining
So my first agenda was to go to education.
Somebody needs to mute their mic. There's a noise in the background.
That's why I'm pausing. I think Margaret is joining in. Kindly mute first, Margaret. Thank you. Oh, she's dropped off again. All right. I just wanted to share for us, for any viewer who is joining us from who doesn't have the background of Kenya, that we had an election on 9th of August. And out of the 16,000 female candidates, Kenyans elected 26 female members of parliament. This is up from 23 in 2017. Seven female governors, which was a big jump, up from 3 in 2017. 3 female senators. And the most interesting bit, a county like Nakuru has about 8 women representing them, from the governor to the women, the members of parliament in Nakuru County are female. So kudos to those counties that elected women. And in counties like Meru Meru, Machakos, and Kirinyaga, you find these are very lucrative, if I could call it, counties that men usually go for. But you have 3 women, one of them who was a women representative, who ran on an independent ticket, but was a former women representative, who won on an independent ticket the seat for female governor and becoming the first female governor in Meru County. And so one of the things that I've been asked, and I'm going to throw it to Douglas, who is my co-host, is that what has been the role of the women representative seat out of the 47 that has played in terms of this particular election? Because if I look at example, the Homa Bay female governor was once a women rep. The Kisumu Rosa Buyu, she won a very highly contested seat in Kisumu County as a member of parliament. She was a women rep. Kawera in Meru County, she was once a women rep. So we are seeing these seats staging up women to a place where they can run for other bigger seats. What are your thoughts, Douglas? As my co-host introduces himself, I want him to respond to that question. Karibu sana.
Well, thank you for allowing me in the show. Hello to everybody in the panel. What I'd like to say is this: it is very important that role of women rep is a very important role, as well as the role of a nominated person, especially if you're a senator, in terms of county representation, because what it does is that it enables and gives you a platform on a county level where you can be able to actually show what you can be able to do to a whole county, or representing a whole county, as compared to being a nominated MCA, or sometimes even being a nominated member of parliament. So this position of women rep is almost similar to senator, whereby you're a representation of the whole county. And I think that allows a lot of coverage, a lot of understanding about the whole county. So you're not just concentrating on a constituency, you're traversing the whole county. People know you inside the whole county. You're representing and handling issues, representing the whole county. Therefore, it's very easy for you to transition from there to either a position of governor, much easier as compared to someone who's concentrated on one constituency and has not been a senator and trying to be a governor. That becomes a bit challenging, because you find like there are other people who don't know you. So now people are realizing that some of these seats actually are a vantage point in terms of really moving forward in the political life, and also being able to bring that sort of like not only development, but being able to present yourself, your personality, your work ethic, and what you can do for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For the viewers, the 2/3 gender rule in this country was brought about through the 2010 Constitution. Kenya passed a new constitution that said every public office needs to have at least 2/3 of one gender, or at least 1/3 of the other gender. And so it has been an uphill task for the women in Kenya to get to a place whereby they are on the decision-making table, meaning they're in parliament, they're in the Senate, they're in the county assembly. And so this election provided an opportunity. And as I said when we began, 16,000 candidates showed up to present themselves to be nominated in any, to be voted in any of the seats. But like I've given the statistics, we are still not there yet. And one of the things the Kenya Human Rights Organization highlighted is that violence has been used as a way to intimidate women not to vie for this position. So we have a candidate with us. She's Margaret, and I don't know, Margaret, if you can hear me. And probably, yes, thank you. I'm seeing you waving your hand. If you could quickly dive in and just tell us if you experienced any violence at all during the campaign, or women that you know within your community, and how that affected either voter turnout or affected you as a candidate.
Looks like she's dropped off at this very moment.
Okay.
So I think we'll have to come back to her. It just completely dropped out. But I have a question. I would like to ask Doug, where he was saying a moment ago, where the woman rep position is similar to a senator. How?
Well, when it comes to the roles are not similar, because they have different purpose in terms of the agenda that they're supposed to actually manifest, or what they're supposed to do for the county. The reason why I'm saying the women rep and the senator is almost a similar role is because their representation represents the whole county. That's what also a senator does. He represents the whole county. So you find like it's the women rep also has that advantage, because the whole county knows you. You traverse the whole county. You deal with issues that are affecting women in the whole county, because that's the role of the women rep. And you actually advocate, and actually also try to push development agenda, or influence governors, senators, members of parliament, ward reps, to actually be able to fulfill certain agenda or certain development agendas. So this is a very not only important role, but also it has a lot of influence, especially if you know what you're doing, and you're there actually moving a development agenda to the county. And that is what I said, it actually enables you to be able to even run for governor easily as compared to a member of parliament who is actually in a constituency, a particular constituency within the county, and he's not popular or he does not get involved in any other issues within the other constituencies. And we have counties which have, you know, many constituencies. Some have more than 5, some have more than 6, 7, 8. So you find like the women rep has an advantage in terms of actually having that coverage and actually being able to deliver, or rather showcase their talent and skills, and bring a development agenda to the county as compared to a member of parliament or a ward rep.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're very right. As a women rep, one of the roles that a women rep plays is to represent people with disability, the old people, as well as the youth and the women through the affirmative action fund that the women representative oversees. And so it allows her now to have projects that can touch the electorate, and they can start seeing her leadership skills even before, you know, unlike, of course, a member of parliament. And usually, Douglas, people say that for a man to be elected, when you rise up today and you say, you know, I want to run, it's easy for people to believe that you can be a leader. But for a woman, most of the times, it is, I have to prove myself, and hence the women rep seat allows women to actually prove themselves, because it's a women rep, women only seat, so that people can say, oh, actually, she can actually do the work. And so when she looks for another seat, somebody says, okay, she can do it. What do you think of that assertion that men, in at least in our context, that it's easy to trust a man even if he doesn't have experience, and he comes up and says, I want to run for an office, as opposed to a woman who needs to prove herself and answer many cultural questions before she rises up in leadership? What are your thoughts?
Well, what I would say is that some of that comes from a cultural perspective and from a little bit of history. But we know that during that time, you know, a lot of public positions were held by men. A lot of political positions were held by men. But as we know, time has changed, and you know, we live in a different society. It's a modern society. It's a global village. You can be in Kenya and somebody can be in another part of the world, and you can communicate in real time, and you can be able to actually see what is happening in other parts of the world and actually apply them to your country, depending on how important it is in terms of helping your citizens and not just adopting anything. So, but I believe that right now we've seen women in positions of power. We've seen some of them abuse that power. We've seen some of them do a very good job with that power. So it's similar to men. There are men who come into certain positions and abuse that power, and there's certain who come into those positions and actually use that power, and we can see their leadership skills. But what it does is that it has provided the society an opportunity to see the leadership of women and how they approach issues. You know, men can be a little bit abrasive. They can be a little bit what's a word? But sometimes they approach issues in a different way. But women, they have a particular way of approaching issues. They're nurturing. We know they are mothers. We know they care about certain important things that actually you know, help the community in terms of daily growth, in terms of education, in terms of childcare, in terms of just maintaining a healthy society. And we appreciate that addition because certainly it has actually helped our young girls in terms of especially the women reps have helped young girls in terms of improving in different areas of society. I don't want to go into deep, but I think that now it's acceptable that women are leaders And so long as you have a competent person who has a development agenda and is willing to work for the people, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. All we need to do is look at your track record and look at your commitment. And if we give you a chance and we see that you're doing a good job, we are re-electing you. So that is what is happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doug. I'm looking looking back, even as we wait for Margaret to join in. Since the election of the first woman to parliament in 1969, the political landscape in Kenya has remained predominantly male. And even with the passing of the 2010 constitution, which requires, a 2/3 or 1/3 gender rule balance in parliament, the male-dominated parliament has not been able to pass a formula or whatever to allow this to happen. And it seems like they feel they're being forced to adhere to the constitution threshold. What do you think needs to happen for us to get to a place? Yes, we are beginning to accept that women can be leaders and all that. But what do you think needs to happen so that we get to a place whereby we have an almost equal representation, or at least a constitutional threshold where both genders are concerned? What will it take? Because this election has shown us we've yet to still reach the 2/3 gender rule.
Okay. First, I'll talk about. I'll answer your question. Like what it needs to take. Then I'll also touch on the controversy against it as well. What it needs to take is, first of all, is the voters or the people who actually, the citizens who are electing these individuals, depending on where they're located in the country. It's not, there has to be a sort of like a big change in terms of how we choose leaders. And there has to be a big change in terms of how leaders relate to us. Leadership is not driving motorcades and speaking political talk and insulting the opposite side and other communities so as to be looked at as a leader and flashing money and actually showing pictures and videos of your association with other politicians so that you gain clout. That is not leadership. We need first of all to start insisting on leaders coming to us and talking to us and signing declarations that say, this is what I'm going to do when I get into this position. These are the issues that I'm going to handle when I get in this position. And the people are saying, these are the most important issues to us. Tell us how you're going to tackle these issues from day one and give us a time frame, how you're going to be dealing this in a year's time, how you're going to be moving on with this other program in 2 years' time until the end of your term. This is what needs to be the new engagement in terms of electing leaders in our country. But right now, we are not there yet. Right now, what I said in the beginning is what happens. It's all about motorcades, parades, theatrics, insults, flashing of money, political associations, and inviting other politicians to come and speak for you, going to and billboards and advertisement, and all this intimidation and security and gangs using and voter suppression and all that kind of stuff, bribery, IEBC issues. That is what is happening right now. But once we have a change, then you'll have people who are coming in saying, okay, fine, this is what I'm going to do. So when they go to parliament, they will be able to move motions that actually focus on the things that actually the people who elected them really want them to do. And also there's this thing called the recall. The recall is key, and it's there in the constitution, but majority of Kenyans have never thought that a recall is possible. A recall is possible when you elect people who actually go into parliament and they don't fulfill their mandate. And the people feel like they don't have any representation, then they can be able to do a recall. Obviously, it's not something that happens within the first few months. It could be something that happens maybe after a year or two, depending on what the provisions of the law is. But if they don't fulfill that, then you can recall them. So now, by electing people who have actually signed declarations with you of the things that are going to do, then you're more likely will be able to actually get what you want. So they'll put those motions of 2/3 gender rule. And also another thing is to elect women as parliamentarians. Because once you elect women as parliamentarians, you can meet the gender rule. So that is those are the two options. So that's basically my opinion. Be able to elect women into parliament, and also be able to elect even if it's the men, they go and actually enforce the gender rule. Another issue that we have with the gender rule is that there's always been this argument that why do you want a two-thirds gender rule in parliament? Yes, you've been given women have been given a position of women reps because there are no male reps within the country. So that is also a controversy, such a controversial issue that has been put forward, and I would like us to also talk about that and see, do we also have do we also feel like there's a need for a male rep for the boy child? That is the question that I would like to put forward as well. Thank you.
I've had that question over and over, and so it's so funny. Margaret, as soon as I finish, I want you to chime in around a male rep seat. But I think we need to appreciate history. The first woman to be elected in parliament was 1969, one woman. Now, we've come all this far. Now we have 20, how many women? We have 26 female MPs in the National Assembly from 1969. But all this time, parliament has been dominated by men, and women have not been in the decision-making position. So the women representative seat recognize, or the drafters of the constitution recognize, that women have been lagging behind for several issues. And so this seat is to boost. And when we started, we talked about women who've gone ahead from the women representative seat and gone ahead and won governor's level and MP level seats. And therefore, it is, let me just say, the men started, and this is a boost so that women can try and catch up. And as you can see with the numbers, which do not lie, we have yet to catch up. And if we pass this rule, if by any event we catch up, then the men will be okay, because then it will be balancing out. Margaret, what are your thoughts about a male rep seat? Please go ahead, Margaret.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I can hear you. Please go ahead,
Hi,
Margaret.
students. You hear me? Thank you. Thank you. Network is very bad. I'm sorry. Every time network is bad. Now here's time. Okay. Margaret Toili from Bungoma County. I'm a politician come activist. Before I joined politics, I grew in the village up. And because of certain reasons best known to the community and myself, I joined the politics. The person who inspired me was Honorable Mother Karua. I saw her articulating matters to do with human life, social justice, because she's a magistrate of social justice, and she could speak more of a woman than men. I didn't know why she did that, and I joined her in 2011. When I joined her in 2011, I knew Parliament is where laws are made, legislative matters are done. So I started off as an MP back in Bungoma in Kepchai sub-county. I did not make it, but I did not give up. Why? My aim and intention was to lead and represent. That was 2013.
We can't hear you, Margaret. Are you muted? I can see you speak, but I can't hear you. Dr. Elizabeth?
I am so sorry that we're having such terrible internet connections tonight. This is unusual. It is not usually like this, that it's, that the screen is, we're having technical difficulties. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if, yeah, I see that Margaret is still in the studio, but however, she's still here, but her camera is off.
I think it's
so
the network.
Perhaps, Madam Host Florence,
it's okay. So
you
she's
can
speaking. Let her speak without the
it is
camera.
definitely the network.
The video, actually.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Margaret. My question to you was around, do we need a male representative seat? You could switch off the video and just do audio and just speak.
Okay.
All right, she's frozen again.
Is it possible for her to speak without the video? Maybe that's what's consuming the internet.
That's what I'm asking her.
Yeah, we've asked her to turn off the video. And
okay,
speak.
so maybe as she does that, Dr. Elizabeth, you joined us. Karibu sana.
Can I just put, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just just add one issue so that we can go to Dr. Elizabeth? So the question is, just like you're asking that question, is there a need for male reps? So the question comes when women elect, what happens when women elect more members of parliament, more ward reps, more governors and senators? Does the role of the women rep become redundant? That is a question.
I can see Dr. E thinking very seriously.
Yeah.
But I'm also saying this. The drafters of the Constitution knew it will come to a point where the women hopefully have caught up, given voter education and, just, educating people that a woman can also be a leader. And so with that particular two-third gender rule, it anticipates that there will come a time where we might catch up. Okay, the women will catch up, and I pray it is soon. And I usually say we need to elect women in parliament because that is where decisions are made. That is where laws are drafted. That is where policy is shaped. And so as we try to elect women, we make sure they are in that house, the members of parliament. And so at some point, will we need to revisit and say we scrap off the women rep seat? I don't think it will be anytime soon, given the numbers that we are seeing in parliament right now. Dr. Elizabeth, over to you. What are your thoughts around what Doug has asked?
Yeah, I was thinking about it and I was wondering, as we look at the way we are creating our education system and the girls are getting more and more alive to what it takes to be a leader. And we are seeing that more and more will actually take up leadership positions, whether it's at the college level and beyond. And for now, I was just thinking that, are we really clear for ourselves what the role of the women rep is? So that if she's got some specific functions that were envisaged by the drafters of the Constitution, as we speak now, is she, the person who occupies that position, able to actually carry out that role? And then how does she also fit into the bigger picture outside the role of things that really are of interest or affect women. She's a member of the community or the society. How then do we make her a person who is equipped to function and contribute at that level? And so I think for now we might, as we now go into our third cycle of devolution, we need to start doing some review and really look at what exactly is a woman's rep doing and what difference is she making in the society where she has been elected, and is she effectively equipped and supported to carry out that function? And then as we get more, because when you say that it's 2/3 gender, supposing now we have so many women in parliament and we have less, the number of men, or the number of the position of men now is like in some countries where you find a lot of women are the ones in leadership. And then we might now need to see, what about the boy child and the man? What are the kind of issues that would be of concern or importance to them that a leader would need to articulate in parliament and make laws for? So in my view, I think we are still young in this experiment that we created, and therefore the women's rep position is still going to be very important. As the women get confident and also have the numbers, then we might need to now have a rethink and see, either we revise what we thought the women's rep is supposed to do, or we just say let's scrap it and let's just make sure that the playing field is fair, that the women can now you know easily or more effectively get elected without all the hurdles that they've been having up to this point. So there's a lot of education, I think, that will need to be done in the society so that the women rep as a leader is respected and is effective. And once we've done that and now the women are empowered, then we now can rethink whether we actually need to have a specific political office, elective office, solely for women. I think that's what I'd say now. Are you there?
Yes, Dr. E, I've had you.
Yeah, okay.
I agree with you. We don't need a man rep seat. And then think if we had not had the 2010 constitution, we'll still be having the same conversations. And as we began this show, we talked about the fact that most of the women, or some of the women that have gone ahead and won, bigger seats like governor, you look at somebody like Gladys Wanga, she was a women rep. Somebody like Rosa Buyu has beat an opponent who was considered very strong, and she has gotten an MP seat. So that the women rep seat is a platform for women to show their leadership skills, and then if they go back to the electorate for a different seat, then they are able to get it, so that they allow more women to keep on coming. Because the issue is, once you've run 2 terms, you leave it for somebody else to also try, and then you go to the next, you look for another seat, whether it's Senate or whether it's a women rep seat. And so I think it will be with us for a long time until we get to a place where we say, okay, cool. And that's why it's important for that 2/3 gender rule to be put in place, so that if it comes to such a point where we have more women than men, it will be an issue for the male gender, so to speak, and the boy child, as Doug has mentioned. I don't know whether Margaret is back in the room, in the studio. I'm only able to see you, Dr. E, so that we can hear from her side, being an aspirant and having gone through this election, this just ended election. What was her experience? And Doug mentioned the issue of people flashing money. Did she have money to flash? And how was it for her? Margaret? Doug, are
Maybe
you
as
in?
we
Yes, go ahead, Dr. E, as we check who else is in.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking, again, that we need to look at the 2/3 gender rule. And maybe ask ourselves, what kind of glasses are people looking at this issue from? By that, I mean, how is it occurring to them that we have so many problems with it or even implementing it? And how is it landing or occurring for people such that some are really, fighting for it and others are quite resisting it? And if we can understand what contributes to that view, that point of view, or that view of the 2/3 gender rule, maybe we can see how we can really make sure that it is effectively implemented so that it actually does what it was intended to do. I don't know whether that has been discussed in the program before I came on, but that's my thought about it, is that we find that every time something comes up in Parliament, there's always some way it is resisted or defeated. And I was asking myself, so what is it? Or how are they seeing this thing that they always want to go against it, rather than look at what were the drafters of the Constitution thinking about when they put it there in the first place?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had the same conversation going on, especially when you see the Kenya Certificate for Secondary Education, and maybe you see the girls are leading maybe the first four. Then you see, they're number 1, 2, 3, 4 are probably girls, and then the rest are boys, or even just number 1 is a girl, and everybody starts saying, "Oh, the girls have taken over." But when you look at the numbers, eventually you realize those who end up in the university are not equally the same. And we had a long conversation the other week about, even in university, you find even those who registered, the girls are always going to class. The boys are not going to class. So even as we are seeing and resisting the issue of 2/3 gender rule, it's going to come a time where we are asking ourselves, where are the men here? And so remedying something because you look like, you feel like we as men are okay, therefore we don't need the women, will be counter effective to you, because in the end you might actually need this 2/3 gender rule, because the drafters saw that as we continue to push for this seat and women continue coming and showing that they can rule, or rather they can lead, and the voter trusting them and giving them the vote and saying, "Oh, actually, I see these women can do it," then it will get to a point where you'll ask yourself, okay, so what about the men? But we can remedy that by having the rule there, because I don't think people are looking at the future. They're looking at now. In fact, these 26 women, it looks like they're too many, but it's only 3 more added in the National Assembly. And then, of course, we look at the nominated ones. So these are some of the things that we see, and we quickly run and think, oh, there are too many women, forgetting the history that they've never been women anyway in the first place, even being cabinet secretaries. So we have to look at that. And Margaret has written a message and says, I do not have money to throw. We need 2/3 gender rule. It has to raise the number of women. Most men, and if we look at land ownership and property ownership and even getting loans, it has taken a while before banks could trust women to give them loans. And coming from that respect, women would till the land, but men would own the land, have the title, that they can easily liquidate and get a loan and run, their campaigns. But women have not yet reached to a place where, yes, they're now owning land, but to a place where now they are financially in a good place to run a major campaign. Like a presidential campaign requires you to go around the country and you have a lot of money to move around with choppers. You also all these choppers. So I don't think we're even in a place to start discussing the men's rep seat until we are able to get women on almost an equal footing at the decision making table. And Doug, you talked about flashing money. And I know there's something in the election law around political financing. And I didn't see IEBC really go out of their way to check who is financing who in this particular election. Who is throwing money? This money that you're throwing, where is it coming from? I don't think IEBC did its job in that respect. And so people were able to just throw money all over the place. And, you know, some were even caught giving money during the election date itself. What are your thoughts around IEBC's role in ensuring voter education, which didn't happen much this time around, but also in checking political parties and aspirants around political financing? You can go to Doug and then Dr. E. And I think Margaret is able to type. Please, if you can type your response, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Before I touch on electoral financing, let me just say something about the what we were talking about, the women rep and the two-thirds gender rule. First of all, I think the two-thirds gender rule it's something that is of benefit to the country. But what we also have to understand is we are working from very, very different circumstances as compared to where sometimes we borrow some of these ideas. Like if you look at the West, sometimes you find like the institutions are very good, or rather they are strong. I can't say there's no corruption, but the institutions are strong enough so that it doesn't matter sometimes who's in office. So long as you cannot violate people's rights and people can still run the enterprise and the standards of living are high, that I don't need to be a member of parliament to enjoy certain parks or get government contracts. I can be able to do private enterprise and this. But in our society, we're coming from a society whereby there are so many high stakes because there are not so many opportunities. That's why it's becoming a do or die situation. And that's why you find all these campaigns become so violent that women cannot participate. But if we were in a different environment, I'm sure you'll find even men, some of them will just go to private industry and do whatever they do in the farms. And whoever is elected, even if it's all women being elected into power, so long as they cannot change institutions are performing properly and the economy is working, they can all be elected into power. But we're coming also from a different environment where there's a little bit of desperation in terms of leadership, because people associate leadership with resources and ability to loot the public coffers with impunity, because our justice system does not work. But coming to your issue about election and financing, we have very good laws on paper. Apparently, we don't follow those laws. We have a very good constitution in our country, but apparently nobody or adheres to the constitution, and the justice system does not have the checks and balances to actually punish those who go against the constitution. The two-thirds gender rule should have been effected. That's correct. The election financing should have been checked. Nobody checks the election financing, how much you're spending, where you're getting your money from, and any reporting of that money. And this not only starts there, it also starts from just being cleared to run for public office. We've seen it clearly. People with corruption cases, murders, people with public abuse of public office being cleared, even by the courts, to run for public office. That's when you know you're in problem as a country. When your justice system is corrupt, that is what you get. And everything else, once this happens 2 or 3 times, and it's been happening more than 2 or 3 times in our country, that's when you realize people lose hope in terms of actually, expecting justice or expecting people to follow the rule of law, because people are flaunting rules and getting away with it. And not only getting away with it, but they are also rewarded after getting away with all this flaunting of rules and all these issues that come with corruption, and even sometimes even come with serious crime, which are capital crimes. So this is the issue. The constitution is there, it's written well, but it's not followed. The judiciary is there, but it's not working for the benefit of the Kenyan. So nothing is working. That's what we have right now. The situation in our country, it's dire. Even coming from this Supreme Court ruling, I don't want to get into it. Maybe that's not our topic, but you can see that is not justice, and that's not how justice is dispensed. So that's a big issue.
I agree with you,
Yeah,
Doug. I think at some point I asked myself, what kind of language is that? Anyway, over to you, Dr. E.
You see, this
On
is
the same
why
topic.
in our last, just to follow on from what that has just been said, we talked about integrity. Without it, nothing works. And you just said that nothing works. And if you look at everywhere, all the things we are complaining about, it's all integrity issues. The Constitution was very clear about what kind of, or, you know, what sort of yardstick you need to be measured against before you're allowed to run. And you see, if you see how the women, you know, because the way we are brought up a lot of the time, you know, lying, cheating, stealing, and doing all these funny things that seem to be the norm in Kenya, just doesn't fly with us. And I'm not saying that women are not corrupt. Some of them are also equally, you know, creative when it comes to you know, to doing things in the political sphere. But at the end of the day, we really need to ask ourselves, as a country, first of all, maybe as individuals, even before we talk of ourselves as a country, what am I really committed to? Am I really committed to this constitution which created a world that was supposed to transform everything for anyone, or is it just lip service? I use it when it works for me, and I ignore it when I don't want it. I don't want it. You know, because if you look at what was just said, that everybody had to be screened according to a certain thing, and they should not have been even allowed to run. And yet they were allowed to run and rewarded and given all sorts of things. And the reason why I'm really concerned about this is I had a conversation with a friend of mine whose daughter refused to vote. And she was arguing with her. I said, no, it's your civic right. You should vote. Now she said, Mom, I am not voting because my vote makes absolutely no difference. And this is a 21-year-old, you know, in the middle of her college. And she's already so disillusioned about the system. She doesn't see the point of even playing the game. And we should be really worried, you know, as a society, if that's what the next generation that's supposed to take over from us is looking at, then who is actually going to run this country when people are so despondent?
And I can answer your question clearly. You're right. The young generation is not really connected with what is happening politically because they've observed, and they've observed us and our parents as adults allowing this to happen. And they don't think they're not judgmental. They're looking like this is what you allowed to happen since I don't know which year, 1963. You've done nothing to counter this. We don't think we want to be part of this. And one thing I want to assure you is that the people who have the wrong intentions, they will never tire to get these political seats. That's one thing you have to understand. That's why having young people losing the passion to vote is very, very dangerous to a country and to a country's democracy. Because the people who want to mess up the country, they have a high desire to get into political power to do whatever they want to do. That's why we cannot afford not being vigilant as voters and not being vigilant in vetting our leadership. Because once we fail to do that and look aside, something that has been a situation that people have already commented over years about the so-called middle class in Kenya, who think that it doesn't matter who the leader is, so long as they can maintain their lifestyle and they can continue enjoying the kind of life they have. That is very, very serious, because even if you have development in your area, these are the same people who come and change laws. These are the same people who transformed very good estates and turned them into almost slums, because they pass laws that approve people to build whatever they want to build in any area. And they change everything. So it will come to your door, whether you like it or not. A bad leader's decision will come directly to your door, and it will affect your pocket. And once it affects your door and your pocket, it affects your family. So Daktari is very right. These young people should not lose this very important thing called the ability to exercise their vote. And they should be given space in the political environment so that they can be able to feel that they are part of it. Our political environment is an environment that is a game of the old men. It's like a country club. Right now, people are in their 60s, 80s, and there's nothing wrong with wisdom. If you're a good leader, you're a good leader. But we see it's all about friends. I went to school with this one. I went to school with this one. So they come together, and they've realized that they can play these games on Kenyans by shifting and doing all these things, but they are friends at the end of the day. This is the game that they play. We are the losers at the end of the day, because then they know that even if they lose elections, they'll be given a position somewhere. We've seen it, and that has always been.
In the Senate elections today and the National Assembly today, people who have now are no longer governors running for being, the Senate, yet, this is where we could be building more leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a few minutes to go, and I want us to wrap up. But I want us to wrap up with this question. As you give me your closing comment, we've just touched on voter apathy. And I'm just wondering, could this voter apathy and the issue of integrity, Chapter 6, has pushed us to a place where we are not seeing, the issue of, the loss of Chapter 6, the issue of integrity has pushed voters to a place of voter apathy. Because I'm telling you, after the Supreme Court ruling, I have many people on the list who are saying, how do I deregister myself from IEBC? Your comments, please. The issue of values in Chapter 6, is this the reason why we have voter apathy? Your closing comments. Dr. E, Doug, and then myself. Yeah. Then we
I'll keep it short.
Yes.
Yes. Like the mantra I keep saying, without integrity, nothing works. And I think this is a conversation that needs to start in our homes, and then we can take it out wherever it needs to be taken up. Because we need to show integrity at home, so that our kids can really learn it, like the way we learned from our grandfathers and that generation before things fell apart. And then I think we need to really give the voters a chance to really have their say. What worked or what didn't work? Without restricting them, and say, look, we just want to hear what you have to say. And if you can create forums, even something like this or whatever it is, whatever other form it takes, but just tell me truthfully, without hiding anything, what worked and what didn't work for you in this last situation. And then we can now create what we need to transform. I think that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Dr. E. You called our election a situation, so it was actually a situation. Doug?
Yeah, for me, I would say voter apathy is an indication of a country moving in the wrong direction, because once people lose faith in the electoral system, it's done. Some people will never vote, so they will never be involved, and there are consequences also for doing that. That's why I'm very, very passionate about us checking our leaders and not losing the urge to vote, because, and this goes to the institutions that are supposed to actually take care of this voting, because it's an exercise that is a sacrifice, and your vote has to be counted. And if your vote is not counted and it's stolen, that means the exercise is futile. It involves a lot of money that is wasted in public, and there are people getting away with it because now election has become a business, and it's a business for a few, and it's not even elections; it's a selection. So people lose hope in this, then the society crumbles, because now people will start looking for other ways of making sure that their needs are taken care of. And this pushes people to another level, and it might not be the best level for the country. And another thing that I would like to sort of propose, maybe we can discuss this in the next forum, is the issue of what I talked about, rewarding failures, or rewarding people who have already been rejected by the people in terms of the ballot. I think there needs to be a situation whereby only elected people can be only elected people can actually be given these positions of CS and whatever. And the vacant positions of which they were elected in, if they become vacant, then there needs to be another election so that people can actually be able to select other people to come to this position, rather than rewarding people who've been rejected by the people on the ground and giving them positions. It really, really, really dampens the mood of the people and shows you that you are hopeless. There is no way out, because these people laugh in your face and tell you, even if you reject me, I will still become a leader. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. E. Please mute. We thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Of course, there is usually you think an hour is long, but today we had a few technical issues. We wanted really to have Margaret on the show. Because of technical issues, she couldn't join, but nonetheless, we were able to have a few discussions around women representation, but also we delved into the system and the structure that allows or that makes it difficult, A, for voters to come and vote, but also B, for the vote to count, and C, for voters to even elect, women within the elective posts. And so I leave you today with this word, that please, I know most of us in this country have decided we no longer want to vote. We don't want to go to the ballot anymore. We want to deregister ourselves. Like Doug said, we have no choice but to do this. We have no choice. We have time between now and 2027 to educate the electorate on why it is critical, but also the people who've been elected into parliament, to ensure that our structures and our laws, our structures make sense and our laws are implemented so that we can have faith back into our society and we move this country forward. Thank you very much. This has been Bonga Dada Bonga, Speak Sister Speak, where we meet here every Thursday at 7 o'clock Kenyan time, and I forgot the New York time. But we meet here every other Thursday to have this kind of discussion. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's educate our people to vote and to keep the faith. Thank you so much. Good night, people.
Good night. Sorry, I was on the Zoom call. With faith, you can move mountains.